A full plate of Nebraska sports on this spring weekend, but football buzz in the dog days of this offseason, there's still almost none.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started.
All right, welcome everybody. It is Monday here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Connor Haffer, Mitch Sherman with you. Big weekend, like Mitch said, full plate of Nebraska sports. We do have a football question, so hang tight. We'll have a football topic to bounce off of you all as we go on throughout the show today. But why not get caught up on the fire hose that we were drinking out of this weekend? I think we start with baseball. Baseball had a white knuckler this weekend of a series against Oregon where they ended up losing
27 innings of it.
Yeah. It was
super regional prep. I mean, that's the silver lining, I think, from Nebraska losing 2 out of 3 at Oregon. And there we'll get into the ramifications and the margin for error for this team, which is small when it comes to what it wants to do in the postseason. But the silver lining is that Nebraska's now played this series on the road. Not the most hostile environment you're going to find in college baseball in Eugene, but a road environment nonetheless, and not an easy place to play against a good team, like physically a good team. And it was 27 innings, like you said, of white knuckle baseball, and Nebraska comes out on the losing end of 2 one-run defeats Friday and Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, so it was. I guess we start with probably the tension of it, as we've said from the beginning of. I mean, really. I sort of started to recognize this probably after the second or third weekend of the season when Nebraska notched a couple nice wins, and we know what Will Bolt is looking for in sort of a makeup of a team. We know how he wants them to play. They have a little bit of bleep you to them. They don't back down from stuff. That's how Will was, and that's how all the really good Nebraska baseball teams have been. This team has that. I don't know that the last. A couple out of the last few or have had that. This team has that. And so keep that in mind when we talk about this series against Oregon, which was a top 25 series and a bunch of really, really close games with big moments and big splashes and near ejections and warnings of the benches and things like that, culminating in a almost fracas on Sunday in Nebraska's loss. I mean, this series had a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and it reminds me of a team. That's a great point, and that's how Will Bolt played, and the teams that he was a part of played, and his best teams that he's coached have been like that, where they have a chip on their shoulder, and like they don't want to take anything from anybody. And the best example of that in a team that Will has had at Nebraska was the 2021 team, the one that lost in the 7th game of a regional. So the final, they took Arkansas to a winner-take-all final game of a regional. And that's the team that had Jackson Hallmark and Bryce Matthews. And you remember Mojo Hagee was kind of he was like the mascot for that team. And they have that. Like, that's what this team has. And again, like we'll get to the downside of going and losing a Big Ten series. But you saw that for sure, and it really bubbled to the surface in the 7th inning on Sunday. This was a 5-4 Nebraska loss, and that was the score in the 7th inning. Oregon scored 3 runs, I believe in the 6th, the inning right before that against the Nebraska bullpen. And you had Rhett Stokes, who was on first base with nobody out, and Nebraska's best hitter, certainly one of its best hitters, one of the stars of this team, Mac Moyer, top of the lineup, is at the plate, and he hits a ground ball in the infield. Stokes goes in hard and a little bit late at second base to break up the double play against Oregon's Ryan Cooney, the second baseman, and Oregon turned the double play, and Stokes got up, and Cooney yelled something at him, and Stokes went immediately right at him, and they got chest to chest and started yelling, and nothing happened. Umpire got in there, and the Oregon bench dugout emptied emptied into fair territory in the case of several players, and the umpires reviewed it for quite a while. They were reviewing, I think, what happened at second base and whether it was egregious on the part of Stokes. That could be ruled. He could be penalized for that, ejected for that. And then there was some discussion also about whether they were reviewing whether the Oregon players came too far onto the field. So that was discussed much on social media on Sunday. But as it turned out, nothing was. There were warnings issued to both teams, and nothing happened. And that's how the game ended. Oregon's closer, Kevin Bell, came out in the 8th inning and shut down Nebraska over the last 2 innings, although they threatened in the 9th, as they did on Friday. But they couldn't get one final hit to drop to score the tying run on Sunday, and it was the winning run in scoring position on Friday in that 1-run loss.
I never doubted Nebraska was going to go out there and compete and stand up to a tough Oregon team this weekend, but it's nice to see it actually play out that way, right? It's nice to see it look that way, and so there's no, I mean, you lose the series, yes, and there's RPI position, I suppose, on the line as far as that's concerned, which is important if we're talking about stuff for an at-large berth later on in the season. But like the storyline here is Nebraska is legit. I mean, Nebraska is good. Yeah. Obviously, Oregon is too. And there's gonna be 4 or 5 Big Ten. I mean, Purdue is kind of threatening in the Big Ten right now amongst that top 4. Nebraska gets USC at home next weekend. There's obviously a very, very, very good UCLA team at the very top of the standings right now. But, Nebraska took every punch and punched back a whole bunch over the weekend and has that Will Bolt quality. So they're never going to go away in these games. We saw the angst a little bit on Tuesday night against Kansas, as we talked about on this show.
Right.
And that team went and had a big sweep this weekend against UCF at home in another top 25 series. So, I mean, there's tough competition all around, and it doesn't make. I mean, Nebraska's stretch obviously is huge right now. They have Creighton this week on Tuesday, and then USC at home next week. But they're not going to back down from anybody. I think that's the main headline.
It is, and Nebraska in this stretch of games, this 2+ week stretch of games that began last Tuesday. I guess it's exactly 2 weeks, that ends with another game against Kansas, a trip to Kansas next Tuesday. We talked about the importance for Nebraska's postseason positioning and these games, and they're now 1-3. So they lost the Kansas game and they lost the series at Oregon. So the pressure is kind of on, and Creighton's coming into Haymarket Park on Tuesday night. Should be warmer weather. We're getting some warmer weather finally this week. All some right. Weather in the 80s, although I see it's supposed to be in the 50s again on Saturday when SC comes to town. But anyway, some baseball weather here for a few days, and the pressure's on Nebraska. If it had won on Sunday and won the series, I think that would have relieved some of it. But now they've lost a series, and there's not a lot of margin for error when you are this Nebraska team that's scheduled tough in February and March, but didn't win enough of those games against the high major competition to secure its spot, and they erased that. They did enough over the first month plus of Big Ten play to firmly put themselves in position to make the tournament. But this Nebraska team wants more than that. They want to be in a spot to host and be a top 16 team. And now they're on the outside looking in. And, I don't want to say that they have to sweep USC, but that would be nice. That would deal you back in. And I don't know if a series win against the Trojans would necessarily be enough unless Nebraska just completely wipes the slate of everyone else the rest of the way. They're 27-9, 12-3 in the Big Ten. Still playing good baseball, but behind the 8 ball a bit after losing 3 of 4 last week.
Yeah, because when you compare them RPI wise, and we don't have to there's still 4 weekends left, right? 4 or 5 weekends left in the regular season, so. You have to be aware of that around this time. Their RPI sits at 27 going into Monday. But it's
not like Memorial Day is around the corner. There's still some time.
Right. But when you compare them to other teams that will be in the hosting conversation, like one of the notes that will be mentioned is, okay, like they have a pretty good RPI and they have, 40 plus wins probably at that point. but their strength of schedule is in the 100s. Like it's up over 100. So, it's not that they played a weak schedule. It's just that's what it is. Like you said, their margin for error is small.
What's Kansas? What's Kansas in the RPI? You mentioned the Jayhawks beating UCF this weekend in a sweep, right?
Yeah, 21, 89 strength of schedule for them.
So they're trying to do the same thing that Nebraska's trying to do. They're trying to get themselves in a spot to host. I think I don't know that Kansas has ever done that and hosted in Lawrence. I believe that they could and have the facility to be able to do it, but that's a spot to think about for Nebraska down the road too. They could end up. You have one of those teams that's right. It's between them. So that adds even more value, more importance to that game next Tuesday. There's a lot to do this week for Nebraska, but you're going to finish this stretch of hugely important games next Tuesday in Lawrence, and you're probably not going to win that battle against in the eyes of the selection committee if you went 0-2 against the Jayhawks here in season.
Hell, they could end up in the same regional. That could end up happening, but
that's what I'm saying. Nebraska could end up going there as a 2 seed to right. Lawrence. Yeah.
You want to have that at your place if you at all can. So that'll be a big game in the midweek. But Nebraska taking care of business, trying to on the weekends is going to be the biggest thing for them to try and get a top 4 seed in the Big Ten tournament and then go from there.
The one victory that Nebraska did get on the week was that 10-8 win on Saturday, and again, you talk about the fight that this team showed really all through the week. We're down 5-0 in that game and came back and scored eight consecutive runs. And then Jay-Sean Unger pitched the last 2 and held off Oregon at the end. So it was a similar formula for both teams. They went to their top reliever in the 8th inning for a 6-out save. And in each of the 3 cases, it worked. Nebraska on Sunday had Stokes at second base with 1 out in that 5-4 game. And Mac Moyer lined out to third base, and then Jeter Worthley hit a ball pretty well into center field for the final out. So they were putting pressure on Kevin Bell, the Oregon reliever, and the Ducks all the way until the end. And it felt like one of those series where the home field advantage that Oregon enjoyed, like that was just enough to make there was such a slim difference between the two teams that probably was enough for Oregon to be able to bat last in all 3 of these games. And if that series is played at Haymarket Park, you probably like Nebraska's chances.
Yep. So important baseball here in mid-April coming up for Nebraska. It's a good thing when you have all things considered. When we come back, we'll take a look at the basketball portal, get you some updates there, and take a look at the rolling Nebraska softball team after this. But first, a word from FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are just about here. Yeah, can you believe it? The NBA playoffs, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Hey, I mean, you could take a look at whoever you'd like to win the NBA Finals. I am myself a Nuggets fan with Nikola Jokic. You can never count them out, sitting around 3rd or 4th in odds to win a championship right now. Why not check them out right now? You can bet at this moment just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The FanDuel app makes it very easy to follow with the action, the player stats, the trends, the matchups, all in one place. And during the playoffs, the extra insight is really going to count when you're looking at stars, role players, key moments, and the matchups in general. So it makes the entire playoff watching experience more engaging from start to finish. So get in on the ground floor. Head to FanDuel.com. Get yourself started today. FanDuel, play your game.
Thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen, and thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you've been thinking about that everydayer club, you've heard us talk about it. Now is a good time to jump on board. It will get you ad-free shows, and it will get you access to our group chat on Discord. Check it out. Head to the show notes for the link. All right. We are going to talk about the basketball transfer portal, which has been open now for just about a week after we recorded our podcast on Friday. Well, we recorded it on Thursday. The mailbag show came out on Friday. And after we finished recording it, Nebraska did receive, it's been several days now. We're a little late on this coming to you on a Monday. But Nebraska did receive a pledge out of the portal from, if this had been football, the guy would have decommitted and somebody else would have taken his spot by now. But from Belmont forward Sam Orme, he is 6'9", 220 pounds, a shooter. He hit 39.7% of his threes last season as a sophomore. So he's got 2 years left, 12.7 points a game, does a little bit of everything, seems like a fit for Fred Hoiberg's system, which of course is probably the most important thing that he's looking for in players from the portal. The fit looks good, Connor.
Yep. Sam Orm, by the way, Orm.
Oh gosh, I screwed it up. I was wrong.
I was wrong. Orm. Yeah, Belmont won 26 games last year, was the 1 seed in the Missouri Valley, and then lost in the first round of the Missouri Valley tournament. So, and then just ended their season, didn't take a postseason berth after that. So it's a guy who won in his 2 years there. And, you like that in your program as well. And there are definitely a lot more targets on the horizon for Nebraska basketball as they have some roster spots to fill now.
Yeah, so Drew Fielder came in from Boise State, 6'11" forward, started his career at Georgetown. He was a 15-point a game scorer last year as a junior, 41% three-point shooter. And he left Nebraska, did not make a commitment, or at least a public commitment. Seemingly didn't make a secret commitment either, because he's headed to a visit here in the immediate future to Washington, to Seattle. So that's maybe it doesn't bode well for Fred Hoiberg, or we'll see. They could potentially still secure a commitment from Fielder, but they have 3 or 4 spots to fill, and you got one in the bag. I see teams filling these spots, and that's like an anxiety causing thing. We mentioned this one day last week on the podcast. Like, we haven't followed this like minute by minute in the past. We have in football, but not in the basketball portal. We've kind of just been like, yeah, hey, Nebraska basketball's got to add some players from the portal. We'll see, in some cases it's kind of like, we'll see what they look like in November, but more realistically, it's like when the portal closes, like, let's see what Nebraska's got. But now, coming off of a Sweet 16 appearance, you're tracking this stuff day by day, and it's, they have one. This team over here's got 3. This team's got 2. Like, what's going on? One player who was rumored to be a target for Nebraska, maybe or maybe not, was actually a target. The name was thrown around because he was a Lincoln Pius graduate, 10-point a game scorer at North Dakota State last year. Trayson Anderson, the forward, he signed with Butler over the weekend.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys in the portal. It's not panic time, and so that's the thing you have going for you. I think, as Nebraska is, competitive, coming off of a great season that they had, you're now thinking like you're trying to half play in a space where you haven't been before, and maybe take some cracks at some guys. And then also you're trying to do what got you there. I mean, and find guys who work for you and those things as well. And so there was never going to be a world, if anyone thought this, I mean, we could put this to bed now. There was never going to be a world where Nebraska just went out and just, money whipped everybody in the transfer portal and
we can get whoever we want.
Yeah, that wasn't going to be in the deck of cards for Nebraska. So they're going to be fine. They'll find guys to fill their spots.
They will, and you're right. There are so many players in the portal, but the top players are starting to come off the board, and as you said, that's not likely where Nebraska's going to be fishing from. They're not going to be fishing from a different pond. So we will watch that in the days ahead. One team that is not worried at all about much of anything right now is Rhonda Revell's Nebraska softball team. Huskers kept on rolling over the weekend, swept Wisconsin by the score of 5-0, 6-0, and then 12-2 on Sunday. A couple of wins on the mound for freshman Alexis Jensen, one for Jordy Fromm, who had a grand slam on Sunday. Ex-Wisconsin player Ava Kuzak, Nebraska's second-year shortstop, homered twice in the finale. This team is 33-6, 14-1 in the Big Ten. Washington does remain unbeaten in the league at 15-0, but the Huskies will play Oregon and UCLA, 2 of the other top top squads in the Big Ten. The next 2 weekends, Nebraska's playing at Minnesota in its next series on the road, much like Wisconsin, just kind of a middle to lower half of the Big Ten type of team. So this is a team that's just waiting now until the postseason. They are almost certainly going to be at home as long as they continue to win in the NCAA postseason.
Yeah, 33-6 and 14-1 looks really good, and there's not very many roadblocks on the way to them finishing off a really, really nice regular season. So keep checking those boxes, and that's what Nebraska softball is doing right now.
There's only 3 home games on the schedule, I believe, before you get to regionals. So opportunities to see them are a premium, and this is one of the best teams that Nebraska's ever had in that sport, and it's the best thing, the best team that's playing on campus right now, unless you consider the Nebraska volleyball team to be playing on campus right now, which they're not doing. They're in the spring season. They are playing, but not at home because the Bob Devaney Sports Center, John Cook Arena, whatever you may choose to call it, is closed for business this spring as they expand it to go over 10,000 seats in the fall next year, which is amazing to think about, that they will sell every seat for every match at over 10,000. Did you see the headline from Matt Brown's Extra Points newsletter last week that Nebraska volleyball was the #1 spender in all of college volleyball in the most recently released fiscal report numbers, and it really wasn't even close. Number 2 was actually Iowa State from the year that the numbers came from, but that's only because Iowa State was renovating its arena in that year and spent a couple extra million. Nebraska volleyball spends over $7 million a year, usually recoups more than that, although it hasn't always turned a profit. So they went up to Sioux Falls on Saturday and played Iowa State and won 4 sets from Iowa State. Bergen Riley got her homecoming in her hometown. She knew everyone in the arena, all 3,000 people there. The 3 true freshmen for Nebraska debuted, and John Cook on the broadcast said that this is a team that might be better than the group that went 33-1 last season. So nothing like putting pressure on your predecessor, Danny Busboom Kelly, in season number 2.
It's funny because they're in a spot where they could say just about anything, and it's not any added like they already have the most pressure on. It's the crown jewel of the athletic department. It's
how do you put more pressure on them? Yes.
Right. We're expanding the building to put 10,000 plus seats in there, and they're going to sell it out every game. So you better perform. You better go to the Final Four. You better win the national championship. You better have the best roster. You better spend the most money. All those things have been true for a while now. And they don't take a step back, except for chasing that elusive national championship for the last few years, and so they're going to be rolling right along.
2017, the last time Nebraska won a national championship. So this is the final year. This is the final opportunity for the freshmen. I say freshmen. They came in as freshmen, were starters as freshmen, and now they're seniors. Harper Murray, Riley, Andy Jackson, and Laney Choboy. So they were all out there on the court. They'll be on the court on Friday night in Omaha. So the Rock Stars come to Omaha, to downtown Omaha on Friday night to play Creighton. Connor will be there DJing at DJ Sokol Arena. You want to watch those seniors. You want to watch those freshmen who I mentioned that debuted. And really the story of the match on Saturday in Sioux Falls was the development of Virginia Adriano on the right side for Nebraska, the sophomore Italian 6'5" player who was a late add to the roster last year, and Skylar Pierce, who's in her 3rd year and has been trying to get on the court for a couple of seasons, and then Tariah Sigler, who started as a true freshman last year but was primarily a back row player. She's no longer that. She's a lethal force from the front row. So they just have Nebraska played 2 teams. They played one team for the first 2 sets against Christy Johnson Lynch and Iowa State, and then they played another team. They split their team into 2 teams, and both of them beat Iowa State 2-0. This is an Iowa State team that won in the NCAA tournament, won a match in the NCAA tournament last year.
Yeah, we're going to be having the same conversations again next fall. Could Nebraska's backups be like a top 10 team in the country? And the answer is probably yes.
Yeah. All right. They'll be, as I said, they'll be in Omaha Friday night. So come back and we are going to talk about football. We have a question to ask all of you. That's next. All right, a message from TurboTax. It is tax time. It's really tax time. You want to get that done. But for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is, it's just a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth, and wondering if your situation is really understood. But this year, you can get a major upgrade because Intuit TurboTax has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app right on the spot. Just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every detail, every dollar that you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out and knowing that your taxes are being handled right. So head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment.
So we've talked about the lack of buzz right now around Nebraska football, and it's apparent, it's real, and it's definitely true. So let's spin it forward. What does it mean? What does it mean, not for right now, but what does it mean for the fall? Does it change the chemistry, the picture, the outlook for you? And we ask this with the knowledge in mind of doing these off seasons many, many times before, and knowing that it's like a steady climb as far as buzz as you get closer and closer to the season. So we'll see what it feels like in August when, Nebraska is getting ready to go in early September. But what does it like? Does this team have the ability to operate quietly? And if that is the case, what does that mean for this team in particular when it comes to playing games?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can look at it two ways. You can look at it and you can say this offseason is going to be good for them because they've really simmered this whole thing down. I thought for the first 2 months of the offseason, maybe even 3 months, like January, February, March, I thought that once we got past March Madness and basketball and the spring game was played, that it would start to feel normal again as far as the attention paid to football and the anticipation around football, and that like some of the things that usually happen in the off season would happen in this off season, and there would be a viral moment or two and maybe a national radio appearance or podcast appearance or something like that from the head coach to generate buzz. And it doesn't really seem to be the case. Like it's been every bit as quiet here in the last 2 to 3 weeks, or even more so than it was in the first 3 months of the offseason. And, I'm kind of thinking that that's the way it's going to be. Like there's not going to be media opportunities that we've seen with some of the administrative or like support staff people in May and June. It's going to continue to be quiet, and that could alleviate pressure. That could allow the football team to go into a situation in August where there just really isn't. There isn't pressure. I don't know like what the formula is that could possibly lead to there not being pressure on Nebraska football, but it seems like if there ever was one of those years, it could be this year, or it might actually ramp up the pressure because, like you went through this offseason and you didn't really have to answer to the public. So now your feet are to the fire. Like you got 7 months to just kind of chill. But this is Nebraska. Like people aren't going to forget that there are expectations, and maybe the expectations will be not that they're greater, but maybe people will make up for missed time when preseason camp starts and say, all right, I got a question about this. I got a question about this. I got a question about this, because I feel like there are people who like didn't even pay attention during spring practice who normally would.
Yeah. There's a couple things here. I mean, first of all, you need to probably mention it's the reason why people are disengaged right now is just because it's been a constant, they've been constantly hit over the head with these seasons. And so the only way to fix that is to win football games. So that there is that part. But the second thing is, I mean, the day-to-day in which you operate is, it's a factor in decision making. And I've oftentimes criticized Matt Rule for being worried about the wrong things. And so if he has a clarity in decision making and feels, less of the, the public weight on his shoulders because he's not, having to speak to these people all the time and not putting himself out there all the time and not taking constant crap on social media, and it just kind of fizzles this summer and into the fall, then maybe there comes a clarity in that conversation. I think that could work to your advantage. I think we've seen it work to a lot of teams' advantages over the years. There's nothing like, when the expectations are down a little bit and having a surprise season after that, or a surprise start to your season, or exceeding expectation. There's nothing that gets people back engaged like exceeding expectations. Look at what happened with Nebraska basketball this year. They started 20-0. They exceeded all these expectations. And then eventually the expectations and the pressure sort of came along with it. But that's a problem that you want to deal with when you get there. And so I think it could be a positive, at least a positive chemistry change as far as the feeling inside of those walls.
There are some times where no news is good news, and a quiet kind of offseason can bode better than the opposite. And I look on this Sunday as we talk here. You see what happened at Wisconsin this weekend. Wisconsin's athletic director, Chris McIntosh, reportedly, multiple reports, is leaving the school. Strange time. It's the middle of April. Leaving the school to take a newly created job in the Big Ten office. So he will report directly to Tony Petitti, focus on the league's broader strategy, according to a message, a post that I'm seeing here from Sports Business Journal. All right. That is a red flag when your athletic director just ups, and Nebraska's been through this, not to take a job at a conference office, but it doesn't matter if your AD leaves in the spring, in the farthest time away from the football season. Yeah, right. What is the deal? What's going on? So those are the questions that are going to be asked all this week and moving forward in Madison. Why is Chris McIntosh leaving? And we know Luke Fickell's going through some of the same struggles, maybe more struggles even than what's happened at Nebraska in the last few years with back-to-back 7 and 6 seasons in Lincoln. So those are the two best seasons Nebraska's had since 2016. Not to hit you over the head with that. I know you don't love 7 and 6 seasons, but they are the best that Nebraska's had since 2016. So there is that, Nebraska does seemingly have that stability and calmness around the football program, which should lend itself to a normal offseason. I have a story coming out, and I won't say who it's about, but I was talking with a prominent Nebraska football player this weekend, and he said to me, and you'll know who this is in a few days when the piece comes out. But he said, unprompted, I did not bring up other sports at Nebraska, but he said, everybody else on campus is winning. Why shouldn't we? And I thought that was interesting to come from somebody inside the football program who didn't have any reason to come up with that kind of a comment based on where our conversation was at. They think about it. It's in their minds. The overall tone of the athletic department is something that the football team could not escape.
Yeah, there's always a tremendous amount of pressure on Nebraska football, but if ever you can, eliminate it a little bit or take that edge off, I mean, that feels like the position that Nebraska is in right now. So we'll see what it does to them. And I do think, if they indeed do start 5-0 or 6-0 or whatever it might be, or grab a big win against one of those teams this year, like Oregon or Indiana or Ohio State, you'll say, man, that was about as surprising of a result. And then we'll look back at the offseason. We'll look back at we'll sort of evaluate all those things.
Hey, I want to say this too before we finish the show. Condolences. Terrible news on Sunday. Chris Jones, 30-year-old former Nebraska football player, defensive back. Chris Peyton Jones, as he's known and was known during his 4 years in the NFL, died in a car accident in Florida. So he was a 3.5-year starter for Mike Riley. Bo Pelini and Mike Riley, and from 2014 to 2017. Definitely thoughts go out to his family and friends and former teammates. That group of players at Nebraska that played in that period of time has endured a lot of loss with Sam Foltz and Mark Pelini. So it's really, really difficult news to hear on Sunday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So our thoughts are with him, his family, and the Nebraska football family as well. Okay, that'll do it for us today on the show. Appreciate you guys listening. As always, stay tuned for the rest of the week. Check out the Everydayer Club, which is built for you, ad-free episodes. Check out the link in the description of this episode if you want more information on that and get signed up today. If you're on video, we'll send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make your second listen Locked On College Football. Talk to you tomorrow.